not sure who presses the button. He doesn't seem to be in front of the button, but...
It doesn't take 3 Inglewood employees to start a recording.
How many Inglewood employees does it take?
Ready, Joe.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City Council study session. Tonight we're back with Board and Commission appointment consensus to bring forward a list for approval. Does anybody have any preference how we start with this? I was just going to suggest that we start with ACE. I know that there's some other maybe more competitive ones that may be a good place to start as well. Does anybody have any preference on how we move forward with this?
Well, we had a couple that we were concerned about what the openings were, so could we go over that real
Thank
quick?
you. Yeah, let's get some clarification. I know that code enforcement, there was some emails going around regarding whether or not there was a second spot for appointment on code enforcement.
Well, who was it that wasn't?
Somebody had just resigned through this
Peggy Lapp.
process.
No, I know that, but who was the original person who created the opening?
I
None
don't
of the
know.
people on code enforcement were up on term limits. Somebody was either kicked off or resigned. Who on that board
I don't
was?
know. Mr. Keck, do you happen to know?
I'm looking right now.
Thank you.
I may or may not be able to give you that information.
So consumed by her house fire that she had to come off. I don't remember her last name.
I don't know if that's the same board, because you have a Barbara Olson that was on another board on the Molly Center Trust Fund.
Well, regardless, I guess the
Just
question...
assume that the spaces we think we have, and we'll clarify it later, because we're going to spend so much time.
I've been working on this for 2 weeks. So
The only issue, I suppose, is do we want to appoint a second code enforcement? I suppose the vacancy came after the application process had begun. Is that correct? I guess as far as timing. Is that right, Mr. Keck?
Yeah, you have the system that we've got, and again, first and foremost, let us apologize. We know that you've gone from a paper system now to an automated system. We're still trying to work out a lot of the kinks, but what we do know is that the vacancies that are displayed in the system are accurate, because Allison has walked through that, each board and commission, and looked at it.
By the system, do you mean the website?
Correct.
They're not correct.
That,
They're not correct. They don't even match the sheet that we got last Thursday.
that we'd take exception with, because we, again, have looked at it in great detail from one commission to another. There should be a Word document that you had before you last week that showed
This one.
that's the one that actually indicates the vacancies. And so as you go onto the system, you can actually see who is on the board and commission itself under their roster for each of the commissions, and see where there are vacancies. If there are other discrepancies, please, by all means, point those out to us. But again, we've spent a lot of time looking at the paper records from previous appointments that the councils have made and compared those.
And, again, the one cultural arts or code enforcement, again, my thought is that the vacancy happened after we started the application process. So I guess the question is, do we want to try to seat that person in that vacancy?
Of course. There isn't anything that stops that.
Councilmember Russell, do you have a feeling on that?
I agree that we could go ahead and replace that person, since we know now before we're doing the actual appointments.
You, Councilmember Martinez.
I agree.
Councilmember Olson.
I'm hearing something different, that's not exactly what it is.
I do. I do that too.
I don't know who the second person is that resigned.
There was a recent resignation, I
Peggy
believe it was
Lapp.
from Peggy Lapp,
Yeah.
and
That
that
was
happened
okay.
post the application process beginning, correct?
She's not applying, she's just leaving.
Agreed, and so that opened up a second vacancy. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
Which maybe just the paperwork hasn't made it through all the way to the end yet.
Yeah, but I don't.
If it happened, you said it happened yesterday?
And I don't have a problem with that second one not being on there, because that just happened yesterday. The issue was that they,
The Peggy one just happened yesterday?
yes, we
Oh.
all had it on the email.
So
You
now
know
you've
about
got
No, it was
two
before
vacancies
yesterday.
then.
Okay.
But her term is unfulfilled, and Councilmember Russell and I were exchanging emails about that yesterday. If you were to appoint somebody, you need to appoint to fill the remainder
Partial
of her
term.
I think she's done in the 18, is that correct?
So how about this?
But there's a vacancy partial term already on this, so now we have two vacancy partial terms, right? Which is what we Because there wasn't anybody coming up, is what you were saying to begin with.
Barbara Fout.
Yeah,
Wow.
she had the fire.
Yeah.
But was she wasn't on code enforcement, was she?
Yes.
Yes.
And her term expires.
It was my understanding that
7/18?
Yep.
James came off of there because he wasn't attending, and that he was the one that was coming off of there.
James Jordan? No one's communicated that to us, and we've received nothing from the chairperson.
And
Yeah.
my guess is you weren't on the list of people notified, were you, when Peggy Lapp?
No.
I forwarded that because
got
she
that
sent
from
it
you.
to Code Enforcement Advisory Committee, and there was no one else on Code Enforcement that I know about that was stepping down.
And that was yesterday?
That was yesterday that Peggy Lapp
Well-
sent that.
Yeah, so she's moving out. I only
Wow,
heard
it was only
that.
yesterday.
Wouldn't have had that.
Rita.
So the question is, would we like to add that vacancy to this appointment process? Councilmember Olson, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm fine now that we've clarified what exactly happened, because
Okay.
she was shaking her head because they hadn't heard.
Okay, so you guys agree we have 2 partial term vacancies
I
on
don't-
code
No,
enforcement?
I don't agree because I haven't seen a letter of resignation. I have no idea.
Well, you do have Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara has one.
Yeah,
Barbara
okay.
Fout.
I don't
She
know
hasn't seen
anything.
Peggy Lapp's,
No.
and I have, so we all have, so,
Then you're
okay.
good.
Thank you. So, that being said, I'm going to start with ACE unless anybody has a better idea. You know, again, there are a couple competitive ones that might be helpful. Even my appointments on ACE, I think, will be impacted probably by cultural arts and some of the other more competitive vacancies. You know, maybe I can just kick us off, though. Who did I have on ACE? I had Amy Gallegos and Richard Langdon, because I thought that, apologize, the other name's losing me here. Because,
Do you get the letters
go ahead,
from
keep,
the-
you know, who else does others have for ACE?
I thought that Jim Jordan had been taken off of code enforcement because he was not attending from the chair letters.
I don't know that there were any.
Yeah, again, you know, I'm hearing that we've got 2 potential vacancies for code enforcement. We've gained some consensus that we're going to appoint 2 folks for code. You know, if we have additional information,
Well, there was some, the concern, first of all, the website as of last night when I checked it is not accurate, not even to the list that we were given. It is not, it did not match. So, and then the amount of terms that were on there and some of the people, and I had a couple of questions on a couple more of them. I think there was another woman that was on this, Bobby Oxford. She wasn't even listed on as the chair for the Molly Center Trust Fund. And I don't know if that changes the amount of people that we had, but she wasn't even on the list. And then the partial list, we have some people that are listed as 4th terms that are on that website as 4th terms. So we need to find out whether the starting dates for their terms are correct, or it's correct that they're in their 4th term.
For which board?
Let's see. And I assume the TAC committee, TAC committee has an alternate, because it's only, per the charter, only has 5, but it's got 6 members. I'll go up my list here real quick.
you know, if you don't mind, Councilmember Marentine, if you know, if there's an issue with how many appointments there are, let's deal with those issues now.
Well,
But I don't, you know, giving feedback on the process and what was missing or how people are listed, let's loop back around to that after we have the discussion. We've only got about
I think that's
50.
exactly what I'm doing, and I could do it quicker if we
Okay,
could just
please
get through it.
continue then.
The TAC committee has 6 members listed, but per the charter, only 5. Was there?
Yeah, they're supposed to only have 5 members. I just put in a call to Granicus last week to ask. I added one too many vacancies, and I had to take one off. So that is why they show 6, but they are really 5.
So do we need to make an appointment for TAC?
Whatever is on your sheet.
There's
It
one.
You have an alternate, yeah.
Alternate.
Alternate.
I added an extra vacancy and had to call them and ask how to remove it.
Thank
So
you.
there isn't a vacancy for TAC then?
There's an alternate vacancy.
So they have an
There is a
Yeah.
vacancy for an
my
alternate.
question, do
Yes.
you have an alternate to it? That's fine. It's not on the website that there's an alternate position, so I didn't know. Public Library Board, Michelle Mayer is listed on her 48th term, and she only was given a 3-year term, which might have been partial, but you have, all of them were kind of listed as partial. So I don't know whether Michelle, who was the vacancy here, whether we've got how many vacancies for Public Library Board then? At some point, I got to trust some information either from one side or the other, either the starting date or something, so I'm not sure which is
So what was the
correct.
question?
Michelle Mayer isn't in her 48th term. I'm pretty sure of that. She's not that old. So she wasn't term limited out. Who is the vacancy then for the library board?
Again, who the vacancy came from, I feel like we can flush
Well,
out
that's the only
later.
way that you can-
You know,
okay.
right now, if we can all agree
How
that there's
many-
one vacancy, then let's get through to appointments. You know, if you have issues about how many spots are available for this discussion, let's hash out those issues now and
That's
loop
what I'm-
back around to
If
who the
Michelle Mayer
vacancies
is on
were.
her 40th term, she cannot stay on the board.
And she's clearly not on her 40th term. So if you
Then
have
I
a
need to
question,
know
then
which
ask the
one she was-
question. Then ask the question.
On the website,
I just
verifying
did.
all these
We're
plans.
looking at it right now.
Okay, Michelle Mayer is on her second term that expires in 2021. Caitlin Baker term expires February 1st, 2017.
So
So it doesn't-
that's your
Further
vacancy.
questions for Councilmember
Who's the
Barentine?
vacancy?
Caitlin Baker.
She did not reapply?
She did not.
All right. Then
Further questions?
P&Z would be the same thing. You've got people listed in their fourth term. For Mr. Ron Fish, you would have to verify his start date on there. It's either wrong that he's in his fourth term or the start date was wrong. Brian Biley, I believe, is one of the term out of there. Then you've got,
I think Ron Fish has 4 terms because he got on before they changed it to a 3-term limit in 2007.
it was in 2011 and it was retroactive to everybody.
Well, they allowed him to have 4 terms.
Who allowed him? The board?
Previous to us.
He was reappointed in 2015.
So he was initially appointed on 1/8 of 2007, reappointed on 2/5 of 07. Then he was reappointed again on 2/7 of 11, reappointed 2/2 of 15, and then his term
Oh,
expired.
it must have been a partial.
7 and 12. 7 and 12 would be 19. Those are 4-year terms. If the date is correct, then he is still in his 3rd term.
It looks like the first time he was appointed, it was to fill a
Partial term.
partial term, and then we count.
Okay. Still, if that date is correct, he's in his 3rd term and he's legal. If the term that it says he's in his 4th term, then he would not be. So either the starting date is correct or the fact that he's in his 4th term. If he's in his 4th term, he'd have to be taken out. If he truly is started on 2007 with 4-year terms with 3 terms being able to up, that's 12 years, he's still okay then, if he's in his 3rd term. So
Sounds like staff believes he's in his 4th term, though. Is that correct?
No, we believe he is in his 3rd term, and
Great.
when that expires,
Thank you. Further questions, Councilmember
Okay,
Barentine?
then Parks and Rec, it looked as if we were missing one, because it's supposed to be 9 members, 7 plus 2 youth. And so if we have somebody coming off of there, but it looks like you only had, how many members are listed on there?
yeah, there's a permissive non-voting liaison, Martha Kirkpatrick, and Melissa Izzo.
How many members
They're
do you
both on
have?
cultural arts, and they're not they're no longer on cultural arts.
Okay,
They're not part of that.
Those were just liaisons.
liaisons.
Right.
Okay, so we have a vacant youth member. You have Marta Monsbacher is the other youth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 members.
Okay. So it's supposed to be 7 plus 2, so it looked like we might have been short more than the one. If we've already got one that we're missing on there, if we have a member who is leaving or termed out, then we have another position open.
So your chairperson is Doug Garrett. Mark Husbands is the vice chair. Karen Miller is a member. Allie Moore is a member. Dagan Thomas, as a representative of the Inglewood Public Schools, is a member. Jim Woodward is a member. Your youth member is Marta Monsbacher, and you have a vacant youth.
We need, by charter, 9 members, 7 regular and 2 under the age of 18. And it looks like we have 6 members, and one of them is a youth member. And so it looks like we have 1 position that's open and a youth member. I'm not talking about the liaisons to
Okay.
the...
From the school district? Yeah.
Is the school district supposed to be a voting member, though?
No, I think it's just a liaison.
liaison.
Because
Okay,
Not
so
for
then,
the charter.
then Councilmember Barentine, to be correct, you need 2 members, two adults,
And one.
and 1 youth.
Are you sure they don't come from here?
No, they're permissive not.
Well, luckily, we got applicants for Parks and
And the
Rec, even
Maui
though we
Center-
only advertise it as a youth. I don't know that we put it out there as
And
youth.
the
Sorry.
Maui Center Trust Fund, those by charter have to be recommended by the Parks and Rec Board.
Right.
So we can't appoint anybody because they've not been recommended to us by that board.
Correct.
All right, so we take that one off, then, okay,
I saw the email. How many people need to be from Parks and Rec on Maui again?
Valley Center Trust Fund is almost, constituencies almost all people that are appointed by.
It is 100%
Yeah,
Parks
you
and
have
Rec.
3 people, one serves a 1-year term, one serves a 2-year term, one serves a 3-year term.
Okay,
And it's a
thank you.
3-year term position that you need to fill.
Thank
but
you.
they're not on Parks and Rec. They don't come to the Parks and Rec.
They have to come from the Parks and Rec Commission.
Only one of them is a Parks and Rec member that goes
Right.
there, but the rest of them have to be appointed
Appointed,
by the
correct.
Parks and
Right.
Rec
And they're
Board.
not
Recommended.
staggered except for
Yeah,
when it was
recommended.
originally set up. They're not, they're already staggered by the
Right.
fact that we sent them up the way that they
Sure.
were. But the 3 positions that are citizens have to be appointed by the Parks and Rec Commission to us first.
Recommendations for appointment to us.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so that part just needs to happen first.
Yep.
And then we need to, I don't know, the code enforcement, that's fine. I guess we end up with 2 on there.
Yep. 2 partials.
On the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, no, what is this? Budget Advisory Committee.
Mhm.
So there were no openings, nobody was termed out, but who was leaving? And because we have one listed, or we had one listed.
We did have one listed.
Who's leaving? Is somebody resigned?
Is there a vacancy on Budget Advisory?
Had one listed where?
Budget.
On this sheet, and we had lots of applicants for the Budget Advisory.
Yeah, Harvey Pratt goes out in July of 17.
So
But
there's
as
no
far as other
vacancy.
vacancies,
This shows under BAC,
mhm.
says 0.
No.
And our
Well, we
little
have
chart
4 we have
matrix
4 of
showed
these.
one.
So the last one we received, I believe, said that there was 1.
Yeah. So just for clarity, there's no vacancies on
Not
Budget
until
Advisory.
July.
Not until
Great.
July 1.
We had the correct on that on Thursday night. We knew it was 0.
Okay, that's right.
Well, we had this, which showed a vacancy, and we had this, which showed no vacancy.
Yeah, work with the Word doc.
Yep. But again, we had several applicants for that.
Okay.
Anything else, Councilmember Maritime?
And then aside from the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, there were any, oh, and the other thing was who was this, was there another one on P and Z? Because I don't understand, we have an alternate on that. What are we appointing on P and Z? Because it looks like we're appointing a member, but we have an alternate for that board. I don't know why we're not just moving the alternate up and getting an alternate.
Or is it that we have 2 vacancies?
Now, you've got a vacancy created by Brian Blyle.
Lily, yeah?
Lively, sorry.
Uh-huh. And we have an alternate on that board, so we would be putting in an alternate, we would just move the alternate up for P and Z.
Is there a named alternate currently?
That's Michelle Ops.
Michelle Austin.
Okay. So then that person would move up, and we're just appointing an alternate?
Yeah, you can do that. Typically, the recording secretary submits a council communication with that information so the city attorney's office can draft a resolution and put it in council's packet. So if that didn't happen, we have no idea. I mean, it doesn't come from the city manager's office. It comes from the board or commission. They start that process and take it to council. So we don't know about that.
Further questions?
I do apologize, because when I called to give you this information a week ago, you said you'd gone over it, and I probably would be redundant, so I'm just trying to find out who all we're appointing, that's all.
Thank you for your efforts.
So it'll be an alternate for P and Z, and we would move up Michelle Austin then,
Tentatively, that would be the plan, I think.
okay? And then the election commission, currently, right now, they only have 3 members. Is there a member leaving as well that creates the 2, I think?
Yeah, 1 partial and 1 full.
Okay.
And
That one got corrected.
while you're on that question,
Uh-huh.
it looks like Michelle Mayer is reapplying for both the Election Commission and the Library Board.
But I don't think her term was up for the library board because she wasn't on this round.
Right. Her term is up on the election commission.
And did we see all the applications for applying on this too? So then she did not reapply.
She did not
She did reapply.
Yes,
Not-
but
because-
only for the,
Her term was up, and that's, she reapplied.
Yeah, only for the
but
election commission.
She isn't termed out. She isn't termed out.
Right.
So
To
we wouldn't have
reapply
seen
to
it
someone
on
who
this
has the right
list.
to do that
It was
automatically.
on the list before.
Right.
That we got, I forget when it was.
Right, when we approved all those, we
Yeah, in
said, yes,
December.
we'll let them
Oh,
do
okay.
that, and, yeah.
So then I was just, who were the people from the election? Because it looked like you were already short one,
Andy Berger, Doug Cohn, and Michelle Mayer.
but by charter, it's supposed to be 4.
And it says there's a vacant position.
So we'll be,
But it looked like, it says 2. Election
Vacant
commission,
and 1
2.
partial term.
Okay, so who's the other person? who's
Andrew
leaving?
Keller.
Well, that's the vacancy. But maybe there is no partial, or maybe there is no. Scroll down a little bit.
Okay, you're going to have to determine, you have Andrew Keller who's vacant, and then you have Michelle Mayer whose term is up. And, yeah.
Oh,
You have, how many people do you have listed on there?
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's 4 people right now.
4 members, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. With the 1 vacancy, and then Michelle Mayer's term is up.
so 1 partial and 1 full?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, the partial term goes to February of 2020.
How long are those terms?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years? Okay.
So there's 1 not there. There's 3 members on there that sit currently. Somebody to make that second spot has got to be leaving. And that's
Michelle.
all I asked.
Because we don't have an alternate, because there's only 4 total seats.
Michelle Mayer?
Her term is up February 1st.
Yeah, but she
Okay,
did
we just
reapply.
got done-
She did reapply.
All right. We'll just say there's 2.
Is that right?
You have to dig into the system and find out. We have to find out if she's reapplied or not in that particular instance.
Okay, I know she's reapplied because I saw the application.
Okay.
But,
So
But
if
you're going
she-
to have to make a choice because clearly she's already serving in a capacity, the city, and you would have the ability to say, hey, where do you want to continue?
right.
Well, and we would want to make sure that, and I would agree with that we just stick to that. We have so many people applying for boards and commissions that we need to just make a determination that people serve on 1 board so that we can make sure that everybody has an opportunity.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Valentine. I do feel like that was helpful to help us line up exactly what we're talking about now. At this point, I'd like to move us on to ACE, if anybody else has anything else before we want to delve into that. Again, I gave 2 names. They were Amy Gallegos and Richard Langdon. I did have Richard Langdon as my cultural arts guy, but I know cultural arts kind of has got a lot of good applicants this round. There were a few names. Let's see. Katie Sullivan, Eric Fair, and Jeremy Lambert, who were all good fits but didn't have a current business in Inglewood. And we talked a little bit about potentially using those three as some sort of help for ACE or something like that. So those three I had kind of starred in that role potentially if we couldn't find another role for them.
But you could do that privately with them.
Agreed.
Through ACE, I assume.
Yeah, somehow. Exactly how that worked, we probably have to discuss, but I just wanted to throw that out there as far as the names that I had, and if everybody would kind of
Those
do
were
the
the
same.
two I had for ACE.
Great. Others have
Don't
different
have an
names.
alternate.
No. Actually, one is an alternate.
One is an alternate,
Yep.
but I didn't pick which one. Well, Amy, I thought was, I didn't know which one should be the alternate. So,
You know, it depends on where folks want to put Langdon. I really want to draw Langdon in, and so if you guys don't want to, if we can't find a home for him in cultural arts, I'd prefer him to be the number one. They're both great, though.
I think he would be a good fit for both. However, there are a lot of choices for cultural arts, so maybe he would be a good fit in ACE, and maybe we can invite him to come to the cultural arts meetings and see what input he can give.
Especially with that graffiti art.
yeah, I
and
think it'd be great to see him do a project with cultural arts and not be.
So I'm going to reach out to him anyway and ask him, so even if we apply him to ACE, I think he still will have some input.
I think he could be very useful for ACE.
Did you have the two same names, Langdon and Gallegos?
I did have a note on Amy.
She was the optometrist. Did you have something? Oh,
No,
yeah, right.
she works right over here.
Yeah, yeah. Amy, are you okay with those two names? Did you have a preference on who was the alternate?
I do not.
Okay. Councilmember Russell, did you have something on ACE?
Those are fine with me. I had Melanie Abagine also, but
Melanie.
Who are you putting on ACE? Or who did you want for ACE? We're not actually putting.
Yeah, we were
anybody on.
suggesting Amy Gallegos and Richard Langdon. Richard Langdon as the term and Gallegos as the alternate is what I was suggesting.
Okay.
Who else did you have again, Rita?
Melanie Abagine
Remind me what business she
has
has.
the,
She has an at-home business, I believe, doing fabric.
Okay.
Oh, I had her too. Actually, I had three for ACE. I forgot. Yep. It was Melanie, Amy, and
You know, I felt like the other two candidates, Amy and Richard, with brick and mortar locations were better fits personally. We
although,
could potentially
do you have
add.
any non-mortar?
Excuse me?
Do you have any non-mortar people on right now? Because actually, maybe it would be helpful.
That's a good question.
They're all brick and mortar.
Are they
I
all
think
brick
we
and
should
mortar?
consider
Now,
someone who isn't.
Is
there.
Kanoth coming off? Kanoth is not brick and mortar. Who else do we have? You'd have to run through the list for me.
Yeah, hang on.
Again, not only
I
because
know
it's
these
home base, but number two, because of the length of their businesses being in operation. Again, I
Gotcha.
feel like these are the best
I
fits.
think that's why I have.
Chad
this
Kanoth
listed.
comes off in July of this year.
Okay,
and
so
he's
there'll be room
home-based.
for one more. Let's tell Melanie to reapply.
Maybe. Sort of. Yeah, he's a broker, so he may
He's a-
have a.
Coldwell
office.
Banker CBC has an office, but
He's with Coldwell now.
yeah. Yep.
He didn't apply.
Yes, Councilmember Barentine.
Chad didn't apply.
Agreed. He's still on.
He doesn't have to.
He's still on.
He has another half a year.
So again, are you folks okay with the two folks that I named, or does anybody else want to suggest anything else? I will add, what's her name? I apologize. Councilmember
Melanie.
Russell. I'll add her to the list of potentials that we could work with ACE on,
Okay.
if we don't find another home for her.
all right, Melanie
Okay.
Abagine.
So again, that was Langdon in the main term and Gallegos in the alternate. Moving on to Board of Adjustment and Appeals. I had Robert Elstrom as the number one and Coeen Dickerson as the alternate. Councilmember Olson,
I did not have them too. I have to look at this. I did not have those two.
no problem. There wasn't a ton of
Yeah, there wasn't a huge.
first choices there. Yeah, exactly.
I had, for the vacancy, Zion, but I'm looking for my notes again on him.
Yes, Sion did apply for that.
I think actually,
I had Zion on urban renewal. That was his first choice. Any other names? I've heard Zion Amy, any other names for that? I can come back to you in just a second.
I'd be
for that.
fine with putting Robert on as the alternate and Zion, or one of those two, because I think Robert, it was kind of a good testing ground for him, given his job, too, because it's not as,
So you're in favor of Zion as,
Test out.
as the main and Elstrom
yeah,
as
and
the alternate?
I think I put that down because I also had Zion down for water and sewer as a possibility, but
There you go. Yeah, and I also had Robert Elstrom for the alternate.
I didn't. Zion did mention water and sewer. You're right.
He hasn't been in this in the community very long.
Who?
Zion.
Again, I had Zion at Urban Renewal. Did
I
anybody
have-
else have another home for Zion, or who their two appointments are
I
for
would
board?
be okay with Zion on Urban Renewal, and I had Robert Elstrom and Colleen Dickerson on Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
Do you have a preference on the alternate?
I would
Make-
prefer Colleen be the alternate and
Where I'm
Robert.
at as well. Lorette, did you have the same thing?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, that is consensus. I mean, we can discuss this a little bit further.
no, go.
Yeah, are you okay
what,
with that?
what was that again? Just
That is
Elstrom for the-
Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
Right.
In the main spot, we have Elstrom,
okay,
and in the alternate, we have Dickerson.
okay.
Okay, now we're moving on to Code Enforcement, which is now has 2 partial terms. And let me see, Code Enforcement, who did I have?
Code enforcement, I had Guy Mason.
That's who I had, that's right, Guy
He's
Mason.
already on
Yeah,
another
he's
board.
already on a board.
He's on library.
But no one else really wanted to be on that except for Jerry Walker. So we have 2 spots.
Yeah, but there's other people that said that they would be more than happy to serve in other spots. I'm just really shy of.
Well, let's
When
have
we
this
have 30
conversation
people.
now then.
Yeah.
I'm sort of the feeling that unless, I'm similar to what Councilmember Barentine said. I said if we have so many that applied, if we can get everyone that we think is ready or eligible to be on one, let's do it. And then if there's some remaining ones where we don't feel like there's anybody that fits it and it needs someone from a second, let's do that. But otherwise, I'm not interested in doing that at this point. Not every time we're not going to have 37. Sometimes we had
Right.
to do this a couple of years ago. We had more than we had spots for 2, and you just tell them to reapply in another 6 months because some are going to go up again.
So
And-
that also then, so we would, at this point, maybe just appoint the one to Code Enforcement, go on and then come back? Or,
Well, I would do the 2 that we think would be good at it for now, and maybe put Guy on like a parking list and say, is there any place else? I don't know.
Mason and Walker were the only 2 names I had, I'm realizing.
That we're
And
interested
he
in.
was listed, Walker was listed as ace, but he did say that
He
code
doesn't.
enforcement was his first, huh?
He also
Yes, he
doesn't-
did say
he's
code enforcement
retired,
was
so he
first.
doesn't really
Yeah.
have a.
Others, folks said they're open to others as well. We'll just have to be careful about picking groups that they're available to meet those days.
Yes, I tried to make some notes if they gave us some.
Okay, so we're putting Jerry on code, right?
Walker?
Because
yeah,
he
Jerry Walker,
applied.
yeah.
Yes.
That, and then, who else?
So I assume Walker would be on the 18 term then?
They're both part
They're
of the
both, they're both 18, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I thought there was a second one that had applied for that.
They're
I don't.
both
I keep looking at
July
CAC.
July of 18,
Yes,
so it
sir.
really doesn't matter. So one of those will be
So
Walker.
we do have an opening then. Yeah. So we'd have to hold off on one and put one in later, right?
Right,
Yeah.
that's a
That's fine.
possibility.
Because you guys don't want to put in Mason?
No, he's already on another board, and we have other people who said, I will serve wherever you need somebody to serve, when you ask them if they would do additional boards. So,
Who are those folks? Why don't we
well,
talk
it's
about
kind
one?
of
I
difficult.
have in my
'cause we got-
notes that Robert Watson was open to others.
Although he wanted,
Amy Gallegos was open to others. Katie Sullivan said she was open. Kristen Fuchs also said she would serve wherever she's needed.
Yeah. There were a lot that said that, and so I think we can put them in. I mean, I think they were
Well,
genuinely
yeah, let's
interested.
get through the, I guess we'll just.
You
make
want to
sure.
loop back around to this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have still one open for code.
Yes. One partial.
Okay.
So then
we
let's
put
move on
one
to
in, and it is
Walker.
Walker,
Jerry
right?
Walker.
Yeah.
Yep. Now we're moving on to cultural arts. Who did I have? I had Kendall Smith, and I believe
was a hard
David
choice.
Walker. No, wait, who was it? I apologize.
Well, good. I think the liaison for that should give her suggestions first.
Kendall Smith and David
Appreciate
Carroll. Councilor Martinez,
I
yes.
definitely think Cheryl Wink. She was a great fit. I also had Rebecca Lori Betancourt and either Kendall Smith or David Carroll. I was going to look at my notes about David Carroll.
And they're a toss-up for you?
Well, I think they both would be really great fits. They both have a lot of things that would bring a lot to that group.
I love your top two choices. I will defer to your better judgment on this.
I had a pretty strong feeling about David as a positive. I mean, to be one of the two.
Okay.
And it was because of, I think he's probably the only one I've seen in a while who has this very strong network for economic development as it relates to cultural arts.
I had that in my notes too.
I love
He's
that,
a liaison to Downtown Denver Partnerships.
Yes.
I think you could leverage
That
that as
is
well.
really like a real hopping thing going on, so.
I think I mixed those two.
Okay.
Nothing, sorry.
So
Good, then?
I think those other ones you mentioned, I would be great with any of those too. So, but this one, I felt really strongly about. I thought it would be a good fit.
What's his
So
name?
perhaps David Carroll on the 18
Let me write it down.
term.
So I would say, David Carroll, Cheryl Wink, and Rebecca Laurie Betancourt.
God, those are really, they're all so good.
Did you like Kendall Smith at all, or no?
I did. I have a toss-up between Kendall Smith and David Carroll. That's what we were just talking about. Because Kendall Smith is the one who runs the music festival, which I think had a really great background, and I think could be really helpful too. Can we just sneak in that extra one on?
I know, right? I feel like I need an extra seat too.
guys.
and so-
I think they're all really great, and this is why I'm having a hard time with this because
So I missed Kendall Smith. That was your very first
That
one
was a
that
pretty-
night. That's
yes,
why
that
I don't
was.
know who that is. So you all.
I had
need to
him as
decide.
Very big into
I had him
events.
as number 2, but I did. I have all the ones you had.
yeah,
That's-
and they both mentioned art as economic drivers, so those things stood out to me with both of them, and they both have a really good experience. I agree though with what you said about David having a really expansive network, and I also noted down that he has experience with placemaking grants, which I think could be a big help for us because we've struggled with that exact
It's
thing.
grant work.
So which one are you picking?
I would go with David Carroll.
All right.
For which term?
On the 18.
I think actually the 17,
Oh, okay.
and then Cheryl.
Sure.
Cheryl.
Oh, yeah.
Or we could swap those. Doesn't matter to me, really. I think they're both going to be good, and hopefully we can
Your
get
thought
them
is that
excited enough to reapply when it's time.
your thought you don't want both Carroll and Smith?
Correct.
Okay.
Carol, Cheryl Wink, and Rebecca Laurie Betancourt.
Carol?
Cheryl Wink is the 18 term.
Yes.
I just worry about Kendall Smith. I just don't have another home for him if we don't put him in cultural arts.
When is the next opening?
You'll have a.
But then it may not. Somebody may reapply.
Well, can't you do something similar to what he's doing?
It's a while.
I am going to reach out to him anyway. What I did like about him also, Kendall Smith, is that he had been to a few meetings already, so he kind of knows and he's been doing his homework.
Since he already seems to have a home there, maybe that would be something that he could still participate in and do, they can always be part of whatever events are going on until another opening comes up.
Well, and I think that's the same for any of them.
Yeah, I think Mr. Carroll and Mr. Smith particularly have some experience with events that I think we'll want to pick their brains as we move forward with some of those type of
And
things.
Ace might want to talk to him. as
Agreed,
well.
agreed.
But you don't need our permission to do that. You can reach
Well,
out to
I'm
that
just
board,
one of
but-
all of us, so I mean, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. If you have a preference, you think Carol, David
Well,
Carroll?
I didn't meet Kendall, so that's a disadvantage
right.
for me to speak up for that. But I did think I liked all of the ones you mentioned a lot. I thought I was just amazed at the kind of
And I
people we
don't
got
wanna
for
try
this.
and pick them
So, but my response with David was, I think it's got this new feel to it that he has connections on some things that we could really capitalize on.
I think you're right, and I think I'm going to reach out to anyone who had interest in this but didn't make it onto the board to invite them to come still and be a part of it and give their
I
ideas.
guess what I'm
anyway.
trying to avoid is somebody who has such specific skill set and trying to just shove them somewhere so that we could use them somewhere else when that really isn't
I
the
don't
best
want them
fit
to
for
go
the-
somewhere. I want them all to be on culture arts, but we just don't have
No,
all
I
the spots.
I understand.
So I don't want to squeeze him somewhere else because his
I don't
background
think
was
you're
perfect
hearing
for
what
that.
I'm saying, because what Joe would like to do is
Joe would
try
like to squeeze him somewhere else. I wouldn't.
Sorry, what?
I would like to not do that, because if it truly is his skill set, then if you're willing to reach out and work with him on events and stuff, I think we should avoid trying to put him just on a board to put him on a board.
Who?
Kendall Smith.
again, this is the only one I think he fits well with, honestly. Budget advisor is the only other one I had that fit well, so. Again, I don't think if he makes, again, yeah, agreed. If he doesn't make cultural arts, he's probably not going to get an appointment, and we'll
Couldn't he
deal with
be
him
on
last time.
Parks and Rec? There's huge concert stuff with Parks and Rec, and they could really use some
Well,
creative ideas. That was one of the ones that's on the list.
That's a great point. Now that we know we have all, adults, that's a
Yeah.
good home, I
We
agree.
have more. I think actually that one might even be better.
Oh, when we get there.
Well, let's get some consensus then on Amy's suggestion of Carol for 17 and Lori Betancourt for 18, is that correct?
No,
No.
Cheryl Wing for 18, and Rebecca Lori Bedford is the alternate.
Thank you. So Wink in 18, Carol in 17, and Lori Betancourt for alternate.
Yes,
So Carol is, okay. Carol is 17 then.
yes.
I'm good
So
with
in
that.
6 months, he just has to fill out his application again.
Yeah. And then you'll have two more in July that
Okay.
their terms are up if they reapply or not.
Let's move on to Election Commission. Who did I have? Robert Watson.
Yes, that's who I
I
had.
had Robert Watson and Fermin Avila.
I did too.
Okay. And
Robert Watson and who else?
Fermin,
I was thinking Watson in 21 and Fermin, is it? On 20?
Herman Avila.
Avia's last name?
Yeah.
Fermina Villa. Yeah, I think he had budget advisory on it too, and that's why.
Yeah, but now we know there's no vacancy there. Okay. Firefighter pension. Did anybody have anybody?
nobody applied for that one.
Yeah.
Wait, looks like there is one on our list.
Yeah. What's that?
Oh, no, nobody did.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay, let's move on then to KEB.
Well, this, again, we
Okay,
were
Kim.
full of great choices. I have Nathan Pavelka, Laurel Rhodes, Jennifer Heller, Nick Griffin, and Laura Tomei.
Sorry, one more time.
Nathan Pavelka,
Yep.
Laurel Rhodes, Jennifer Heller, Mig Griffin, and Lauren Tomei. Everyone who expressed interest.
Do you have any preference on which go to the which, as far as partial term versus full term?
I don't.
Does anybody have any preference there?
Did you have Christine Adams also on there? Because at the end she said she'd be open. She was interested. No, what some. But she didn't have the. So I had the same ones either. But I have a question mark by Christine Adams. Did I just think
I
that
think
she?
she's the one who really wanted Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Okay, yeah. You're right.
I had the exact same 5 names.
We agree.
Yeah. So
It's
now we just
amazing
need to
great
decide
people
who's
for
going to the.
Okay, I have Meg Griffin and Lauren Tomei as the partial terms.
Tomei and who? Griffin? Thank you. And then the other 3 are on full terms. And those are the same terms, Eric, right? 3 full vacancy terms, right?
Yeah, they are.
Great.
Say them all again. The 3 are
Rhodes,
Rhodes.
Paklava, Heller. And the 2 partial terms are Griffith and Tomei. Anybody have anything else on that before we move on?
Pavelka and who?
Heller.
Heller? Okay.
And then the partial terms are Tomei and Griffith.
Is that okay with you all?
In the letters that go out, do they say that the partial terms that you'll be able to reapply for the same thing?
Yeah.
Going. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Malley Center Trust Fund.
We have
Again,
to
we
wait
do
on
need
that.
some recommendations, but the names that need to go there, I think.
Yeah, how do you want to handle that?
Bobby Harris, Robert Stevenson. Who else needs to be given a recommendation opportunity? Those were the 2 I had.
Actually, the question that I have is Robert Stevenson is already on a board, and
He never
there-
comes.
and he doesn't come,
Yeah.
which creates a problem. So,
He's only been to one KEB.
so I think Bobby Harrison, maybe they'll come up with other suggestions.
My thought is we send those 2 names and they can make a recommendation of one of those 2. And if we.
They recommend to us. So
We don't
it
send them
wouldn't-
any
it wouldn't
names.
ma- it wouldn't- it
Well,
wouldn't
no, we
matter.
need to
can
let them
send
know.
the application.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to send them those 2 applications, the 2 people who applied, and then they're going to make a recommendation because we only have one, so they're going to make a recommendation of one of those 2. I'm sorry?
That's not what it says.
What?
They recommend to us.
In the
I
Muni
think
code.
that in kindness to the two people who took time to
Oh, no,
that
absolutely,
we ought to
I'm not
send
saying
it to
that,
them and
but we're not
let them-
limited to
Right.
not fill the spots.
Right.
From, if there's more than that, then it wouldn't matter, but they,
Oh, I
do
see.
agree that they applied, but they have to come, they still have to.
Right.
But wouldn't they need to apply, or are you suggesting that Parks and Rec could bring other recommendations of folks who haven't applied? Is that what you're
They
suggesting?
could, in theory.
We haven't been following it, this
Fair enough.
process.
So again, my thought is we'll send them those two, and we'll see what recommendation they make.
Right.
Okay, let's move on then to,
I hope they honor that, but I'm not sure they'll.
when is their next meeting, do we know?
Next month.
Just had it
They
last
just had a meeting last
That will
last
delay-
week.
Thursday night.
My
That's
thought
Thursday.
is
Meeting.
maybe we do that appointment separately the following 2 weeks later. I don't know if we want to delay everybody that long.
I don't know if that board can have a phone vote on this, or whether they can put that out via email. I don't know whether they have a committee.
Touch base with their chair, please, and
Right.
see how
Find
quickly
out
they
how
might be
their
able to
chair
make a
wants to
recommendation.
handle it, 'cause it's kind of up to them how they recommend.
Agreed.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on to planning and zoning. We have an alternate.
Did we do Parks and Rec?
Well, we just, oh, sorry, Parks and
That
Rec,
was
yes.
Mallie.
We were talking about them, but.
You-
Yes, that's why I got confused. Okay, so now we got 2 adults and
Except
1
for-
youth.
Wait, that NERB board,
NERP, yeah.
what is that again?
Non-emergency
Is
redeployment.
that the one
No
where that
vacancy.
Barbara, that woman is on there?
What?
Barbara, somebody, I thought that there was an opening on that one.
Showing none.
There's no openings on
No,
NERP.
no, it was Malley Center Trust Fund that Barbara Oxford was on, and she was turned,
She,
she was
yeah,
turned out.
she
Oh, okay,
termed.
that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Okay, Parks and Rec. I thought there was only one, so I had Christine Adams.
I think Christine Adams would be a great fit.
I did too.
So if there is a longer term, can we agree that it'd be Adams? I don't know if those are the same terms. I assume they are. So Adams. Anybody else have another name?
We talked about
Kathy
Kendall Smith.
Christie, Kathy Christie is another good one, I think.
Any other recommendations?
okay. Kathy Christie and then Christine Adams.
I said wait on Kathy. Let me see why.
Go ahead.
On Kathy Christie?
Yeah, what is her background? What is her deal? She's not on another one?
I don't think so.
No.
I got
What
former
night did
Parks
we
and Rec member
recommend
and
her?
BOE. I'm good with Christie as the secondary, a shorter term if there is one, but if they're the same, they're the same.
They're
We
the
had
same.
no youth applicants.
So you still have a youth vacancy. So
Correct.
you kind of drum up some support out in the
No,
community
our
for
youth
that.
doesn't come to that. I don't think I've ever seen the youth person at our Parks and Rec.
Really?
To be honest, yep.
And I think
yeah,
I can
there
do a
were.
better job of getting that out
I'm
to
sorry
the
they don't
Board
come
of
to the
Education
meetings.
folks and reminding them when we
Yeah.
have youth spots
I
available.
said there
Meet on
were.
Monday, we
when
can
I
do
was
that.
at council before,
There
there
haven't
was had
for the
some very
last-
active members.
For the last year and a half, I haven't seen.
We had that one kid from last time. that
Or
one-
maybe I've only been
I
on
don't
for a
know.
year.
They're on library board, cultural arts.
To cultural arts. It hasn't been a while. But the youth member at the library board.
Since we have, so since I didn't know we had so many
Vacancies there.
vacancies, so I'm fine with Kathy. I just said if we're holding. if
Yeah,
we
that's-
need to
I-
hold.
that's-
That's all this note was.
I was
Yeah.
in
Okay,
the
so
same
it's
thing.
Christine Adams and Christie.
And Kathy Christie.
All right, and then
You.
whoever the youth member is, we don't have a youth.
We didn't have a app.
So now we're moving on to planning and zoning, that alternate.
And I would, what's his name?
We have one
I would like it
regular.
to be the, what's his name? The guy that shows up all the
Jeremy
time.
Jeremy
Luckmiller.
Yeah,
Luckmiller.
Jeremy Luckmiller. He's been participating, they've been active in it, and no more votes.
Who else did I
It would be good to have
I
a,
had David Carroll. Who else?
we're just doing an alternate position.
I have a note about
Brian
Jeremy
Fisher.
Lambert. Let me see his notes. I can't remember what his name was. There were so many people that applied for this one.
No.
Yeah, I like Jeremy Lambert too.
I really liked Brian Fisher too. He had a breath of fresh air. He's no axe to grind.
And he had some expertise in land use.
Expertise.
I agree. I think
No
Brian.
on Jeremy Lambert.
He's a developer.
I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah,
it's
I
go-
said no on him too.
Thank you.
Yep, I didn't think he lived here long enough either.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either, and I'm not sure he does. But and he owns 3 properties, and he's spoken.
So we've
Well,
heard,
I'm fine with that to
we've
some
heard
extent, but
Brian
it didn't feel very
Fisher.
straightforward to me.
Yeah, right, exactly. I
heard
agree.
Brian Fisher and Jeremy Leckmiller. Is there anybody else?
I actually think Brian Fisher, too, there might be a conflict of interest. He's in the,
I guess I just, I like Jeremy Leckmiller a lot, and, I respect his opinions, and honestly, I worry, though, about getting some folks who are not really land use oriented or,
see,
you know,
that's,
and we just appointed Michelle Austin, who, in my mind, is kind of that resident representation
oh,
on
we
this
only
body.
need one
All of
resident,
them
and
all of them are residents.
all of them should be
Agreed,
residents.
but, I think all of them, in my opinion, should have some level of expertise in land use or development or something like that. And I'm not saying that they all need to be, pro-development,
John Brick
but they
doesn't
need to
have
have.
any land use background,
Neither did Brian Biley, coming off of there.
and
We
neither
also
does.
got Kristen Fuchs as a good fit for this one.
In reality, I don't think there's very many people on planning and zoning that do have a lot of land background, and so in some ways, I'd
Or
like-
development,
Or development.
They got a lot of
development.
development.
We
Yeah, you
have,
have a couple of
some folks have
developers.
gone off that I think have been really good for them to take a break. And so I think, I agree with you in terms of, I would like to have some people that actually have some of that in their background. I'm not sure we always do.
The pushback we've got from the community has been that that we don't have that kind of community-oriented thing, and I think it's, you have somebody that's put so much work and effort into learning what the codes are, being part of the process and participating, that it just makes it look more punitive, that we don't want to hear from the other side. I think we're very heavy development right now, and I like their work, their ethic, and getting all of the information and putting that through, and I think that it would either spur it up or it would quiet the opposition to it down, because he would be part of it, and then he will either be able to work through it and figure out some of the compromises through the system, rather than have this constant battle from the outside. I think it would actually make it easier.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't think that he is a very good team player. Maybe this would really help him to do that. I mean,
I think when people are frustrated and seem somewhat helpless, maybe it could be misconstrued that way, but I think he's conducted himself actually very well and very prepared, and done a lot of research, and I've respected that. And so I'd rather have that opinion on there, and then we can meld that with what's realistic to do within the boundaries of what our power is as the city, and maybe that'll temper some of it, and maybe some of that will temper us. I don't know, but at least he does the work, and I think that he does do a pretty good job.
I agree with that. I would like to see more balance. I'm not saying I want all one side. I'm not saying that. So, and I do, in his interview, he said that he is not against development, but he wants to be responsible, and I do believe he will do his homework.
I agree. Councilmember Martinez.
I think he would do his homework. I like that he brings a health perspective, which I think is really important. But I also really did like a lot of what Kristen Fuchs had to say. She talked about, she was the one who was previously a mediator, and talked a lot about
Affordable housing.
And diversity in housing, and sustainability in housing. So I really liked a lot of what she said too. I would be fine with either one.
I guess I was just concerned about too much of the mini house kind of thing that they were doing, which is, we're just getting a huge amount of pushback from all of that, and I'd like somebody who wasn't so new in the community.
Kristen has been here for a long time.
Long time.
Kristen?
Yeah,
Well,
she's been here 25 years.
Oh.
I
No.
really had her on URA. That's where I had plugged her in.
Oh, that was where the housing.
Well, that could work.
I like Fuchs here. Again, I could go with her.
this is interesting. I had let Camilla down on URA. and also the code advisory as another one in that
He
mix.
actually said he didn't want to start on it.
Yeah, I mean,
know
he only
he
applied.
said that or nothing, which that also kind
But that's where
to
his
me
heart
is a
and
bit of
soul
a
has been.
yeah. I know that's just a bit of a I'd love to see him just try some other things. And I agree with you that it may be really helpful to some things. I just hope that he works well with others. And I know that he does a lot of homework. Sometimes that's actually one of the problems. And maybe there's just too much information or too much harping on some things and bringing in things that I didn't always agree were correct analysis. But hopefully he won't wear out a group. And
I don't see him that way. I mean, I've seen him in other settings, and he is not combative. I do not think in situations they were very passionate
Right.
about what was going on where they
Right.
live.
Sure.
And I can see that.
So we have
Yeah.
two
Well,
supporting
when you
Leckmiller.
disagree with
Is there a
someone-
third that would support Leckmiller?
sounds like you have 3.
We don't.
We
It
do.
sounds like
Oh,
we
you
have
don't.
two.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
you said you did.
We do. Don't we have 3?
No.
Oh, I
It's just
thought-
you and Councilmember Valentine that are supporting Jeremy
So then
Leckmiller.
who did you want to see?
Again, my choice was Brian Fisher, and I said that I could live with Kristen Fuchs.
Yeah, those were my 2 that I had in there, and I didn't know which was best.
When did we
Brian Fisher.
do Brian Fisher? The second day or the first?
First day, I believe. He was pretty early on.
He was here 6:20.
He was
on-
the attorney, worked on downtown revitalization.
Oh, yeah, that's what, he's the one that I think has a conflict of interest. He's an investment analyst for a commercial finance industry. I do not want him.
We have so many, that's what the accusations are.
What do you
is that
guys
we're
think
so
about Fuchs?
developer-heavy with that. No, I'm just
But
gonna go with
they're
Leckmiller.
misunderstanding it.
I think you would calm the community down so much by putting somebody in who's been outspoken about it. To bring them into the fold would probably help quite a bit on the issues.
When's our next opening on planning and zoning?
Okay.
It's
You
going
have
to be in July.
18s. You have somebody's leaving.
Well, that's why I'm asking him.
I don't see anybody leaving in July.
Oh, that's Housing Authority.
Yeah, I see a lot of people 2020, 19, 20, 21.
God, this is a long
two-
time out.
Two
This is
people, and John Brick and Mike Freemeyer, expire in February of 18.
Okay, so a year from now is the next time that we have an opportunity to put someone new in. John Brick and who else?
Mike Freemeyer. However, Freemeyer's only served one term.
Okay, so he might, but John is probably
John
out.
Brick would have served 1, 2. He's in his last term.
He's another one who's not a planning, zoning, landowner.
Developer guy? Yeah, he is.
Do we want to come back to this one?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Leckmiller, so I think.
And I could live with Leckmiller. Again, I have a preference for the other two just to get some more, sort of expertise there. But I could live with Leckmiller. Do we have support for either Fuchs or, who's the other? Fuchs or Fisher?
Or Fisher. I would prefer one of them, but it
Do
sounds
you have
like
a
you've got
preference
3 now.
between any of the three?
I think Jeremy and Kristen would both be great. I do really like a lot of what Kristen said, although she did say she would be open to serving on others. So I think she could really give a lot to urban renewal also.
Mhm.
So if we were there, I would be open to having Jeremy Leckmiller on P&Z.
Fine,
I'm
let's
fine with that.
Okay.
Move on then.
Okay.
So we just put Fuchs into urban renewal too?
Yes.
So we got
There was
police
only one.
pension.
There's 2 spots, though, for urban renewal.
I know, guys, just putting it in
Okay.
now.
Is there anybody for police pension?
I don't think
People were
anybody
popping to
applied.
get on that one.
Yeah. Let's move on to public library.
I have Lily Siegel Gardner.
I did too.
I did too.
She's the only one that applied for it, and I think she's great.
Excellent. Gardner.
For which one?
Library.
Public library.
Lily Siegel Gardner.
She was on your Thursday interview panel.
Okay. Anybody have anybody else? If not, let's move on to transportation.
I don't think there's anybody on there. I don't know.
Elstrom was the only one, I believe, who
No, I'm not sure that there was an
suggested.
But that's okay. So there's really nobody other than him that applied for it, and we already put him
We've already
on.
put him in, so I suggest we move on then
Okay.
to urban renewal.
Well, Christine Fuchs.
see, I got
Well-
Bernie Costello
I'm okay with Bernie Costello.
and
I
Zion.
want to see him back on and to see this, what's going on through.
Yeah,
'Cause they're almost, I just would love to have someone who
Oh,
knows.
yeah.
I think that's good.
So we got Costello
I doubt that there'll be
And
anything new
Fuchs.
for a while.
and Fuchs. I had Zion Spurgeon.
You already put,
Where did we
you
put?
already, 5 minutes ago.
Bernie and Christine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kristen.
Then we need to find a place for
Okay, let's move on to
Spurgeon
water and
somewhere
sewer.
else.
Timothy Johnson on water and sewer.
We had Jim Woodward and
Jim is already on 4 other boards.
Timothy Johnson.
Timothy Johnson was the one that came with the previous experience from another water board.
Yes, for Perry Park Water and sanitation.
Senate-
sanitation.
Change it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get there one of these days. That sounded so much classier when he said, yeah, I really liked his experience, Johnson.
All right.
Do you guys like Johnson?
I did, yes.
Can we agree that Johnson can be the term? And then let's talk
Yes.
about the alternate. Again, I had Jim Woodward.
Where are we with openings there right now for the next 6 months? Like, is there it seems like a bunch are going to roll off.
Let's see here. So, a couple, well, Clyde Wiggins in February of 18. Chuck Habenicht in 20.
So these are long-term.
Burns in 22.
Wow, Burns in 22.
These are long in terms of.
Don Roth in
And this
18.
appointment is for 6 years.
I'm going to say something that it will shock you, but I think that Jim can be on something else. He's got enough, and I know that he's got a lot of water background and so forth, but I think there are ways in which we can make sure that he's used in other ways. I would like to
Do you have
see
another
someone-
name?
Well, I can't figure out. I had a second person for alternate, and there was a bunch of people that wanted it.
Well, then take Robert Elstrom off of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals and put one of your other people on there because he applied for it too.
So did Tommy.
Who?
Tommy.
But you have her down for
What a, yeah.
KEB.
Yeah, we already appointed Elstrom as well.
Yeah.
I think
So
you
do
would
we
do-
have,
I think he's
who was the
got
other
at
name you
least-
guys suggested?
I would move Elstrom off because I just think he's at least capable of doing research and figuring it out. I don't know who else applied here.
So the only name
Somebody
that's
else
been
for the Board
named
of
is Johnson and
Adjustments.
Woodward, is that correct? The only names that have been named is Johnson and Woodward. Didn't sound like Woodward had support, so Johnson's really the only one we have so far.
I will give support to Jim then, if that's the case. I would like to leave Elstrom on what he's on the code advisory.
The only problem is Jim is on 4 boards already. That would put
No.
him on 5
He
boards.
can't be on, we already made, we have more than enough qualified people.
Yeah, nobody else is advocating for
Funds
Woodward
for-
besides me,
Can
so.
we
Have
look
him be
through-
on a 5th board.
Yeah, can we look through a list?
Woodward's done. I mean,
of-
we've-
Can we look through a list of those that we now have not put on anything that we think, like, I can't figure out from mine now, where are those stragglers that we haven't put on something that could actually,
Sure.
do
Yeah, if
well.
nobody else has a name for water and sewer, let's move on to that.
Did we find a spot for Katie Sullivan? I have a note here that she was open to serving on others as well.
Did we find a home for Sullivan? No, I don't believe so. Yeah, I don't believe so.
The only thing she applied for was the ACE, and she's not a business
she's not a
owner.
business owner.
Right, and I
What
just
did
have a
she
note that she
do?
did say she was open to serving on.
I know, but
wherever
that's-
needed.
She's a professor.
That takes some learning. If she wanted to, I'm sure she can learn it, but it takes a year at least, but
Kendall
Otherwise, you're
Smith
just
does not
stamping
have a
everything.
home. So let's go through the list of who doesn't have a home. Kendall Smith doesn't have a home. Melanie, yeah, does not have a
did
home.
we put Zion Spurgeon on anything?
No,
Spurgeon does not have a home.
Bagnall has no home.
Bagnall either?
Joseph Bannock,
Yeah, Joseph Bannock doesn't have one either.
Business owner.
But was he the guy that didn't show up to an interview?
Who's that?
Bannock?
Oh, yeah, he did not show up.
Oh, I have my other sheet that has it on it. Yeah, that's right, they're taking him totally off.
And my notes on Zion says he has a finance background.
CJ is off too, I forgot, I didn't transfer these.
I'd sooner take one, like I said, either Elstrom or somebody else off of another board that has at least a more ability to deal with some of the water issues.
Or what would happen if we left it vacant for 6 months?
It is the alternate.
It's the alternate, so
So we
They're
could
not a
do
voting
that.
member.
Oh, maybe that would work then.
But, I mean, at the same
Necessary.
time, I don't want to leave one vacant if we have all these people that want
Who don't have a
Well, we're not
home.
leaving one vacant, it's just an alternate spot.
Well, on the one hand, let's look at the ones that are not assigned, that we think were really strong people that could serve in that way, because it does take time to learn.
But it is seven.
Can you
but
let me
maybe we
just
might wanna
finish
do the
what
seven.
I'm saying, please?
Yes, let her finish.
Please. I
I
think
had
you've done that
started, I'm
every
sorry.
time
Sorry.
I've talked tonight, you've done that to me, so just.
Actually, no. But
Sorry,
Come
let's
on, just
let's
let
leave
her
it to
talk.
Linda.
Will you say it,
Linda's-
please?
Please
Yes,
have the floor.
because 6 months of an alternate would really help someone get up to speed. That's why on this one, like, if it was another board, it wouldn't matter as much, but this one could really help someone get up to speed. So I'd say if we can find someone, and maybe we don't do it tonight, maybe we
water
do it
and
at the
sewer.
end up here, I
Okay.
don't know, but I would like to see someone in there for the sake of the water board.
Water and sewer did miss their quorum last week or last month. So.
Kidding.
No, yeah. So we didn't have a meeting. So there is a function for the alternates.
that had nothing to do with the openings for the board.
No, it didn't. It was
Right.
just unavailability of members.
Right.
So.
And under that same guise, it's very important, this board, so I don't want to just put something there.
So do you want to pick up this conversation under member choice then
Yes.
after the regular meeting?
Sure.
Thank you.
Either
Anybody
that-
else?
Either that, or is it possible that we could talk about it at council members' choice at the study session next week, because they're not going to be put on the board for two
Tonight,
more.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's right, that's true.
That's a good point.
I think we should maybe do that and then look through our stuff.
Yep.
I think that
That's
would
fair
be
enough. And we'll have
And
a
you know
full
what?
members
We
there.
could actually call a few of these and say, would you be interested in serving in that way? Because you didn't necessarily put it down. I'm sorry, what?
I'm not sure that that's a good idea. I don't know that we should be interviewing outside of the full council. I think that re-interviewing people individually like that might lead to a little bit of problem as we keep putting this off, because then we keep coming to the table, then we'll come to the table with a separate private conversations outside of there.
And I think that, we only left a couple of spots vacant where folks didn't, apply for them. In my mind, water and sewer is really the only one we're too worried about. And so, Councilmember Olson, if you're okay, maybe we just, continue this conversation. If we feel like we need to reach out, we can evaluate that next week.
Whatever. Fine.
You okay with that?
It doesn't really matter, does it? Because I think we could ask a few people if you'd be interested in. We've done it before, but.
Is there
it's
any
not something-
specifically you're
No,
suggesting?
it's fine. I'm one of 5 here. It doesn't matter.
Agreed. I'm just trying to honor your comments
okay.
and suggestions. Anybody else with anything before we adjourn and move next door? Thank you. We're adjourned. Let's move next door.
Let's take a quick break.
Yes.